Since 1988, Whitetail Institute has been perfecting annual and perennial seed products specifically for hunters who plant food plots. Their seeds have been engineered to be palatable, high in protein, and extremely attractive to deer. Whether you live in the Deep South or Midwest farm country, they have products that will help you grow your best food plot yet. For more information about their seeds and their blends, visit whitetailinstitute.com. Enter the discount code SE15 for 15% off. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Man Therapy Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Dan Johnson, and digitally sitting across from me, but in the same town, I've said that before, Mr. Kyle. Kyle, how we doing, man?
Doing well.
Well, what's cracking in your world? I think you said you got some sickness running through the family.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Everybody's got bad head colds and all kinds of stuff going on. My family traveled last weekend, and you know how it is. Anytime you fly anywhere, it's just like you're just in a flying petri dish. So, they all came home sick. So,
yeah,
now it's just riding it out and forcing the kids to sleep and forcing the wife to sleep.
Yeah. Knock on wood. We haven't, my daughter had a little bit of like a congestion. I think some of it had to do with allergies. Allergies are real bad right now.
Oh, yeah.
I've been fairly lucky over the years. Like I get one sinus infection every year and I get the flu one time every year now. But before that, man, before kids, I rarely got sick, which was crazy.
That's something that I think doesn't get talked about often enough, like before you have kids. Cause dude, I was the same. Every job I ever had, like hardly ever used a day of sick day. Like my sick leave would just accrue and disappear because I couldn't use it. And then once I started having kids, like, holy crap, I couldn't have enough sick time between taking care of myself and the kid. Like I felt guilty, calling out of work sick because it was happening so often and so much more than it ever had before. I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to come in and get everybody else sick, but I had never been sick that much.
Yeah.
I
I definitely used my sick time, but it wasn't because I was sick. So take that how you want to take it.
Yeah, fair.
What else has been going on?
Man, I went to San Diego last weekend to my buddy's Coast Guard retirement, and that was a pretty neat full circle moment for me because 20 years ago I drove him to Davenport to enlist, and so then I got to be there for his retirement party too. So that was pretty neat.
Oh, cool, man! That's awesome. Yeah. And so he did the 20-year thing in the Coast Guard. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he had a really neat career. So it's funny. He went to basic, and then apparently at the end of basic, they like give you a sheet of paper with like say 12 lines, and they say, "Hey, like give us all the places that you'd be interested in being stationed." And so he's like, Mr. California, Mr. Beach guy, and so he wrote like his top 11 were like all these beautiful, sunny, warm coastal beach places, and then just as a joke on line 12 he wrote Alaska, and I guarantee the people going through the paperwork were like, hey, look, some dumbass wrote Alaska, and they just sent him.
Yep.
Right out of boot camp or whatever, he had to go to Alaska because he wrote it as a joke, and he ended up being there for 8 years and loved it. Like, he was not happy that he was going to have to go there, but he ended up like really liking Alaska, even though he would have to go out for months and stay on a boat in like the Bering Sea. And it's like really cold and really choppy water. And, the show The Deadliest Catch, like that's where those guys are at. Like he had to just go out there and live on that for a few months at a time. That sounds miserable to me.
Yuck.
Like, so he did.
I could deal with like some waves maybe, but I would have to be on. I don't know what it is, but I get car sick really easy. These days. I don't know why. But I feel like if I was to choose my top areas, if I was in the Coast Guard where I would want to live, I feel like I would want to be off the coast of Maine, like northeast. The Great Lakes would be a place where I would want to go off the coast. Like, have you ever been to like the Pacific Northwest, like Oregon and Washington up in there?
It's gorgeous
up there, right? And so I would want to do that. But then, of course, like like Florida would be sweet, like
Oh yeah.
Miami, would be sweet to
Oh,
live,
right.
in
Absolutely.
certain, especially if you're young, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
and he's been all over. He was in after Alaska. They moved him to Florida, and he was there for a number of years and enjoyed that. And then he was fortunate enough to get into canine handling. So he had a bomb dog,
okay.
and he had a bomb dog for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's from Florida. Then I think he moved to San Diego, and San Diego's not bad either as far as
Yeah.
comfortable places to live, but it's very
Right.
expensive. But yeah, so he had a bomb dog for years, and so he got to go to like the Super Bowl all the time, and the Rose Bowl, and Indianapolis 500, and like all these things where they needed bomb sniffing dogs. And then like
Mm-hmm.
when Obama would go vacation in Hawaii, he'd have to go to Hawaii with his dog to just make sure everything's safe for the president.
Crazy. Oh yeah, I forgot about Hawaii, dude. Hawaii would be
Yeah,
a badass place to be on the
Hawaii
Coast
would be
Guard too.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like San Diego's awesome, but you have to deal with like the drug
Mm.
intervention
Mm-hmm.
because New Mexico's just right there. Florida
Yep.
was great, but man, it's really humid, hot and humid down there,
Yep.
and hurricanes are a pain in the ass. But I think you're right on with like northwest or northeast. I think that'd be pretty. I think that'd be beautiful out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Are you ready to switch to our
I'm
kind
ready
of our
for it.
topic today?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to say, kind of full disclosure, I don't know what it is. It's been lately, right? I feel like maybe watching the news definitely is a reason why I wanted to talk about this. But between some of these school shootings, this Charlie Kirk thing actually has hit our household fairly hard, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the values that our family has and how we kind of can relate to some of the, not all the messaging, but some of the messaging that he has had. And so it really kind of wakes us up about what type of person or persons would be willing to disagree with someone or take a stance or a view that is so hard that
Mm-hmm.
they feel the best thing to do is to harm themselves or others.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and I think, they say that a lot of this stuff is preventable, right? That's what they say, but some of the most horrific acts happen. And then you hear someone say after it's happened, like, oh, I would never have expected this guy to be like that or do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the topic of conversation that I want to have today is how to identify a loved one, a friend, or someone in your circle who is struggling to the point to where they themselves, the idea pops into our head that they might harm someone else and others. What does that look like?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think I'm really glad that you're bringing that up. It's a thing that I used to have to deal with a lot when I worked at the university in the counseling center, because th- that time in a young person's life tends to be especially hard,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they're away from their support system. They're away from like everything that's they're way out of their comfort zone. They're detached from everything, or not everything, but a lot of things that um used to ground them. Like when you're in high school, you know who you are. You know kind of where you stand with people because you've been around the same people for years, and then when you go to college, it's a big shake up, and all of a sudden you don't really know who you are or where you stand anymore. Um, yeah, we'll talk about. Hold on, I want to open up some documents that I have here on my computer too. Um,
Because while you're opening those up, there's certain groups of people in this world, and everybody. I don't know about me, but and this is hard for people because not all people of a certain thing, of a certain race or a certain gender identity. I don't even know how to say it, to be honest with you,
Right.
or how they live their life are bad people. Okay.
Right.
However, when we start to absorb content from the news, or we start to see statistics fall in line that match up and represent a certain group of people, right? Subconsciously, I look at that person and I'm automatically judging them. And I'm saying, well, statistically, this person is going to be this way because of who they are, what they're saying, how they're living their life. And I don't want to be a part of that. Okay.
Right.
And so, but how, like, at the same time, you see one of those people, or you know someone who's doing these things, and internally you're having this debate. Do I say something or do I let it slide? Because who knows? It's, statistically, they're not going to shoot up a school or whatever the case is, right?
Right.
But they have all the characteristics of that thing that's happening.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Absolutely. Yep. And we'll go there. So
Yep.
the information that I'm looking at is not the most updated, but I also don't think it's super out of date. So it's from there's a 2016 fatal injury report from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So this information is from that. So it's obviously, it's almost 10 years old, but I also don't think it's changed a ton. It's kind of hard for this type of information to change a ton. So suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Somewhere between 35,000 and 44,000 people per year take their lives. It's estimated that for every suicide, there are about 25 attempts, not for that person, but for each. So there's that many people attempting suicide. And for every 25 attempts, there's one completion. Okay. So that's about 875,000 to 1.1 million a year worldwide. The annual adjusted suicide rate is about 13 people per 100,000 individuals. So if you think of the town, a city the size of one close to us, think of how many people that's going to affect a year.
Yeah.
There's about 123 suicides per day. On average, there's one suicide every 12 minutes.
Is that worldwide or in the United States?
I think that's United States.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a lot.
One every 12 minutes, you said?
Yep. As far as the methods that are used, this is for completion. Firearms are the most common means of completion. 51% of suicides are completed by firearms. Then suffocation, like hanging yourself. Poisoning. Suffocation's about 26%. Poisoning's about 15%, and then people find lots of other ways, about 8% of the time.
So poisoning would be like taking a whole bunch of pills or drinking yourself to death, or
that's right.
Okay.
Purposefully ingesting something. Yep. And then others, lots, like cars, or jumping off a building or jumping off a bridge, or running your car into something. Men are much more likely to die by suicide than women. And
why do you think that is, from a counselor's perspective? Why do you think that is?
Yeah. So there's a number of reasons for that. The main reason for that actually is that men tend to use more lethal methods than women. I actually think that women attempt suicide more often than men, but men complete suicide more often than women. So, women are more likely to, try to take pills or something. Women use less violent means. So they'll try to take pills. Like I think it's fairly common in hospitals to see like a female suicide attempt of someone that took a lot of pills but not enough, or took a lot of pills but they weren't the pills that would kill them, or things along those lines. So actually women attempt suicide more often than men.
Yeah.
Just men complete more often because men are much more likely to use guns.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So men die by suicide about 3.5 times more often than women.
Okay. So
Um,
the method in which they try to kill themselves is higher, or is a more lethal way.
that's exactly right.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
But I want
Yep.
to talk from a men's standpoint about why you think. So that's one reason, because when they try to kill themselves, they're using a more violent method.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But to get to that point, why do you think men like
Yes.
why do you
Yes.
think men try to kill themselves, or the reasoning why they feel
Yep.
like it is the only answer for them?
Right. I'll share my thoughts on
Mhm.
this. Men, I think men. Okay, so ask the question one more time.
Well, just why do men feel like they need to kill themselves? Really is
Right.
what it comes down to.
Right. Absolutely. Um, Actually, we're gonna hold off on that. We'll get more into that. Um, it's interesting to me that white males accounted for 7 out of 10 suicides in the United States
Mm-hmm.
in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so men are more likely to use deadlier methods, such as
White
shooting themselves
males.
or suffocation, like hanging themselves. Women are more likely to try to overdose on medication. Um, Women are more likely to attempt. Then I think among well, actually, I won't get that deep into those statistics. Suicide rate is rising, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really notable that from 1999 to 2014, the suicide rate rose by 24%.
Yes.
Um, there's been some studies done. Gets into what we were trying to talk about a minute ago. Um, so there's a link between suicides in middle age and rising rates of distress about jobs and personal finances. So as money gets really tight and people lose their jobs, they feel hopeless, they feel ashamed. I think a lot of suicide is hopelessness driven and shame driven.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's more common in folks with less education. And the guess there is that they have fewer options. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like if the few things they figure out to try to do haven't worked or aren't working or the bottom's fallen out in their life, they don't have as many options or paths to possibly go. And so if
Yeah.
they're less educated white folks are more likely to take their lives. When the economy gets worse, suicide numbers rise.
Financially driven. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, a lot of financial stress. And so you asked, like, well, why would men do that? So a lot of it is, to me, responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
They feel responsible to their family, and if they feel like if they're not making ends meet, then um, they feel ashamed of themselves and they feel like they're failing their family. I think there's also a lot of comparison that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think men are less likely to talk about their mental health, and so once depression starts setting in and they start feeling those hopeless feelings, they're less likely to go get help.
Yeah.
Which I hope that's changing. I think that it is changing some, but I don't think it's changing quickly enough.
Yeah.
Men are more likely to isolate. Um, men are really hard on themselves. I think men are also hard on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Conversely, though, I actually think men are also. I don't know. What do you think about that? So I said men are hard on themselves, and I instantly had the thought of like, yeah, but also in my experience, like men men are more sensitive than we all give ourselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like using the folks that I know, like, geez, I actually know a lot of people that I could call if I were
Yeah.
getting to that point. And a lot
Right.
of like really good, strong, masculine men that, if I reached out saying that I was struggling, they'd like really be there. They
Yeah.
wouldn't call me a pussy. They wouldn't tell me to shut up. They wouldn't tell me they didn't want to hear it. Like they would really be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? What's your experience with that?
Well, first off, I'm not going to try to put myself into the shoes of someone who wants to commit suicide because I've I don't think I have ever had the thought of ending my life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I
Mm-hmm.
told you the story about like previously when I started taking that testosterone, right?
Yeah.
And before that, there's a period where my thoughts were just dark,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't like kill yourself dark. They were like, I really don't know how to explain it. Like the world was not a bright
Yeah.
place. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I I can't I can't it's hard for me to relate to someone who's so out of it that they can't call their mom. I have 50 people I could probably call. If one
Yeah.
didn't answer, I could call the next one. If one didn't
Right.
answer, I'd call the next one. And
Right. Right.
I feel like they would be there for me,
Yeah.
right? Even people I don't know who I know are good people within just the community that we live in
Mm-hmm.
before that happened. But for a moment, I will try.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
will say, I lost my job. I can't find another one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I'm guessing there's a whole bunch of stuff that plays into it. Like, you know, I was living above and beyond my means financially. I was trying to keep up with the Joneses in a sense. I
Yeah.
had, I was spending more money than I was making, and now I'm in a hole so deep that things are starting to get taken away from me, like
Yeah.
potentially a house. And then at the same time, your support, the reason why you're doing those things, potentially a wife or a parent, is now telling you that you're a piece of shit because you're not being a man and taking care of that. And in
Yeah.
that time, you probably shouldn't be hearing those types of things.
Yeah.
You should be. Now, there is a time in life where I feel a person needs to quit feeling sorry for themselves and get back on the horse and start
Mm-hmm.
riding in the rodeo. But But that person who's saying that to the guy who is potentially a guy or gal who's potentially going through the struggle
Yeah.
can't read that room,
Yeah.
can't read the room. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so I'm guessing that they not only have made a mistake in their life, but instead of getting support like, dude, we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine. They're met with, you're a piece of shit. It's your fault why all of this is happening. And I don't feel like that happens in a matter of a day or a week.
Right.
I'm guessing it's somebody who, has heard those things and thoughts and has had those actions taken on them for potentially years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I do truly believe that there are people, because of how they were raised and how their parents potentially coddled them, that they've never dealt with adversity in their life. And so because of that, they don't know how to adjust in hard times. And so that then would be a straw that breaks the camel's back. And then you add alcohol, you add addiction, you add
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case is, and it's
Yep.
just continues to pile on and pile on and pile on. And the
Yeah.
next thing you know, they want to give up. And
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not obviously, that's not exactly what happens to everyone.
Right.
That's
Everybody.
a
Right.
scenario that could play out. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think basically for anyone, it can happen that at some point, regardless of if it's of your own doing, like your own mistakes or like
Mm-hmm.
things that have just happened to you that had, nothing that you could do about, that put you in a bad position in life. Um, People feel like a failure. They feel guilt. They feel shame. Um, Oftentimes people don't reach out because they don't want to feel like a burden.
Yeah.
And I don't assume that's, like only males feel that way, but I would guess that males might feel that way
Hmm.
more than females. Once a person starts to feel hopeless and they can't see a way through, then it's actually really common for people to think that they're doing people in their lives a favor.
Yeah.
Like they really think, and this is how tricky depression is
Hmm.
that it tricks you into thinking that people would be better off without you, and that
Hmm.
you're actually doing them a favor. And yeah, maybe they'd be sad and stuff, but really overall, you think they would be better off without you. So you're like, they'll deal with my loss. It would be
Hmm.
better for them if I wasn't around. All I do is mess things up. I've only brought pain and shame to the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You brought something up there that I want to kind of talk
yeah.
on just a bit. And
Mhm.
that is the difference between, like, man, depression. Okay. Like, what is the difference between, and I'm trying not to laugh here, but I feel like there's times where it is serious. This person
Mhm.
has depression. They are very capable of potentially hurting themselves or others.
Mhm.
And then there's well, I'm feeling sorry for myself
Right.
type of where, things don't go my way. Well,
Yeah.
get off your ass and start working for it type of deal.
Right.
And then what they do is they think that the medication is going to help them, right? When in fact, they kind of going back to what I said, they've had someone coddle them their whole lives or someone give them what they want their whole lives. So when they do hit adversity, they reach out to others for help instead of dealing with it themselves, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Where's that crossover?
Right. So I'll actually say it's, I've been a therapist for 14, almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
My experience has been much more that it's less people being coddled that don't know how to deal with life, and it's actually like really really normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think things can just get to a point where people are feeling that down.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why it's so surprising that depression can affect anyone.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a biological component to it that like somebody that looks like they might have it all and life might be going really well for them. They still might be unhappy and like, trying to mask it. So I'm sure there are cases of people that have just been coddled that, don't know how to deal with life and they're kind of doing the poor me thing. But, actually in my experience, it's been a lot of just really normal people that are, that have done generally well in life, and whatever situation has happened or thing has been weighing on them for a long time, or their situation has changed, or brain chemistry has changed, or whatever the case may be, that they start to go down that road. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a long slippery slope that, from being happy, the slightest let's maybe not even happy, content, like from being fine, like one step down from being fine is tolerable. It's not that big of a deal. And then one step down from that is, again, tolerable because it's not that big of a change from where you were before. And one step down from that is tolerable because it's not that big of a change from where you were before. And you do a whole bunch of those small steps down, and each one of them doesn't seem like that big of a change because it's not from the previous step. But if you do a bunch of those small steps over the course of months or years, all of a sudden you haven't been okay in a long time, and you can't even put your finger on it.
Yeah.
I think also the people that I worry the most about are not the ones that like are like, oh, poor me. They're the ones that feel like they actually judge themselves the harshest.
Mm-hmm.
They're really really hard on themselves. That they think they should be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they think they shouldn't whine. They think they shouldn't complain. I've
Mm-hmm.
actually seen a lot more of that than like, air quotes, complainers.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of people who like they want to get through it themselves. They don't want to put it on other people. They think they should be stronger. They're confused as to why they feel the way they do. They don't know why they can't get themselves out of it. They don't know why they can't get it going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, and some people do jump straight to medication at the first sign of discomfort. Also, some people should have gone that route a long time ago and never did because they have a stigma against it and they think they shouldn't. They think they should just try to like gut it out or get through it on their own, or they see a lot of people see medication as if you have to use medication as a sign of weakness. A lot of people think that talking about your emotions is a sign of weakness. A lot of people think that like admitting that you're struggling is weak, and so they don't do it. So they just constantly like keep going more within, more within, more within. So I'm more worried about the person that like is hard on themselves than the person that can't handle discomfort, so they like run for help.
Right. And I should say something before we go further, and that is, it's hard for me to relate to those types of people because I have gone through dark days in my life, like just about everybody has, right? But I've never gotten to the point where I've wanted, or like I've never thought I've needed medication. I've never thought I did take antidepressants that one time I was telling you about, but it just did the opposite for me. I felt like glue. And so I stopped taking them, and that's when I started doing that testosterone. But then, like, even as a kid, when I was going through dark times with me and my brother, then we would always have kind of an escape from that, right? So I wasn't in it 24 hours a day, every day for 365 days. So with that, there was like, it's hard for me to relate, and I'll just admit that. So if you hear me say things that are like toughen up, deal with it type shit, that's because of my ignorance, not being able to think like those types of people think. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I appreciate that you're able to have that insight.
Yeah. Because I don't know what it's like to have depression. And I don't know what it's like to feel so down that your only escape is to take your own life. Okay. Now moving forward here, if I was acting a certain way, as a therapist, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a spouse, what are some indicators that people have depression or are so low that they're thinking that they might want to harm themselves or others?
Absolutely. Great question. And I just want to make sure that I insert somewhere. So I don't know if this is the perfect place to insert it or not, but one thing that I did want to mention, because I think it's an important bit of information to know, is that like LGBTQ folks are much more likely to attempt suicide, especially LGBT youth, and especially LGBT youth that come from rejecting families. They're like 8 times more likely to attempt suicide. So I'd be, if I had anyone like that in my family, I'd be trying to be close with them and be supportive of them.
Okay. So you're saying that gay or trans or non-binary or whatever, I don't even know what those things are these days, but all of that type of
those groups
labeling. Okay. So this is very interesting, because do you feel like most of that then comes from the rejection from the family, or just them being confused in who they are?
I think I would think, and this is without like reading the studies on these things, I would think that most of that probably comes from rejection, whether it's from their family or from their peers. I'm sure in some cases there is, just internal personal struggle and internal friction and rejection of themselves, and the confusion itself can be really hard. But I think it's much easier in a family that's understanding and connected, or easier in a community that's there for you. So yeah, I think the same person being in two different environments, one being more supportive and one being less supportive, I think someone in a less supportive environment is going to be
Hmm.
more susceptible to it.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so you wanted to talk about like what are some of the
The key
signs?
indicators
Yeah,
that
key
someone's going to,
indicators.
yeah.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Okay, so key indicators. We're going to go through a bunch. So if there's been if there's been a recent suicide in their family or in
Hmm.
their like community, that's a pre-indicator. That's a good warning sign. There can
Hmm.
actually be suicide epidemics in communities where if like it'll happen in a high school every once in a while, where like a high schooler will take their lives, and then like one or two other students in the school will take their lives too, because it gets kind of exposed as an option.
Hmm.
So a recent suicide in the family or in the community or school could be something to pay attention to. Or if there's been a recent death by other means, that
Hmm.
increases somebody's likelihood. If that person themselves has had previous suicide attempts, then they're much more likely to try again. If they have a preoccupation with themes of death, or obviously if they're expressing suicidal thoughts. Um, if there's substance use involved, that's way worse. And you mentioned that earlier. Um, if a person starts giving away their stuff,
Mm.
it might seem like
Interesting.
they're being cool and starting to like, if you were like, "Hey Kyle, like, would you have any interest in this bow? Like,
Hmm.
I'm just kind of thinking about getting rid of my bow and arrow, man. Thought you might want it." I might be like, "Uh, what?
That's
Why
odd.
are you trying to give away your bow and arrow?"
Yeah.
you know. So if people start to give away possessions, or if they start making like, making arrangements, so to speak, like,
Yeah.
some kids start like cleaning their rooms, or cleaning their locker, and almost like preparing for like, oh well, after I go, somebody's gonna have to like clean this up,
Hmm.
or like take care of my stuff. So they start like sorting through things and organizing things. um if they have a major change in their sleep pattern, so like if you notice that your kids or anybody that you care about is like sleeping way more, or really struggling with sleep's a really big one, and sleep's really big for physical and mental health, generally speaking. But if somebody's sleeping a lot, that's a big one.
Yeah.
um if there's like a sudden change in their eating habits, or if they're losing or gaining weight, that's something to pay attention to. And obviously none of these things on their own are like some of them are like, some of these things on their own are obvious, but some of these things on their own aren't obvious that it's going in a suicidal direction. It's just, it's kind of, you're putting a bunch of pieces together. Um, you really want to pay attention if somebody's starting to like withdraw from friends or friends and family, or if you
Hmm.
notice other behavioral changes. So like when you'll see high school students that they they they've pulled away from their clique, they've pulled away from their group, and they're not, they've lost interest in hanging out with their friends. That's a bad sign. If
Hmm.
they drop out of group activities, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Um, if they're if you notice like any personality changes, so like if they're like more nervous than they usually are, or if they're like more, they're having outbursts of anger, or if they're more impulsive or reckless, like, kind of having like a I don't give a fuck attitude.
Hmm.
If they stop if they stop taking care of themselves, like, you can't, there are a lot of people out there that can mask their depression well, and also sometimes they can't. And sometimes it's obvious, their hair will get greasy, or it's obvious that they've been wearing the same clothes, or it's obvious they haven't showered, those sorts of things. Those are more obvious. Um, that's why it's a good idea to stay close with all of your friends, because you would be more likely to notice changes in their appearance. Somebody that's usually neat and tidy, and they haven't gotten a haircut in like 4 months, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, like, what's going on, dude? Like, you're usually like really well put together, and you just don't, just something's off about you.
Yeah.
If you ever have that feeling that like, man, that just seems strange, like, it's just something just feels off about Dan. Like
Yeah.
that's a good time to just reach out to them and connect and be like, dude, what's up?
Yeah.
How are
Yeah.
you doing? I just want to check in with you. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard like check in on your friends. Like it's really, really true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What about verbally?
mhm.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to cut to some of the chase here.
Yeah, do it.
You have been a counselor for a very long time. And before we started recording this episode, I asked you the blunt question
Mm-hmm.
during a session with a client. Have you ever had the feeling of someone was about to hurt themselves or others? And you said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was that particular person doing, and what signs did he give you that were saying, I mean, maybe it was blunt. Maybe he said, dude, I want to commit suicide.
Right.
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 What,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and then what was
Absolutely.
like,
Well,
what was that person doing?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've actually worked with many, 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 many folks that have been on the verge of suicide. I've worked with lots of folks that have attempted suicide. I've known people that have completed suicide. I think most of us do have known someone,
Yep.
probably multiple people. Obviously the people that end up in my office are there for a reason. They're there because things aren't going well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the expressed reason is depression. It's not always that, but then we discover pretty quickly that there is depression, because when I'm doing my assessment, I'm just straight up asking them about all these symptoms. How's your sleep? How's your appetite? Any weight change? What's your mood like? Any change from that? Any change in behaviors? Like, I'm grilling them.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting all the answers. And so it's very common to, as a therapist, to ask all of those questions and then have a whole bunch of things starting to add up in your mind that makes you ask the client, like, hey, are you thinking about harming yourself? Have you thought about killing yourself? And I'll ask it that bluntly, like, have you thought
Mm-hmm.
about killing yourself? And it's been surprising to me at how straightforward people will be when they respond. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard a lot of yeses to that question, like, yes, I'm thinking about it, or yes, it's crossed my mind, or yes, I think about it a lot. And then when there's suicidal ideation, there's basically two paths, and they can intertwine, but there's active suicidal ideation, which is like, yeah, like this is a real option. I have an idea of how I'm going to do it, or yeah, I think I have actually everything I need to do it, or I'm trying to figure out the best time to do it, or I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it, or like, oh, there's just one thing holding me back from doing it, but once that thing's out of the way, then I'm going to do it. Or, oh, it's too close to my
Yeah.
mom's birthday. I want to wait till after her birthday, or, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So that's active suicidal ideation. They want to end their lives. They have a plan to end their lives. They have the means to end their lives. So it's like, an example of this is like somebody that's depressed, and it's like they do say they want to kill themselves. Well, how would you do it? I would shoot myself in the head. Okay, do you have a gun? No. Okay, well, they want to kill themselves. They have a plan, but they don't have the means.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, well, how would you get a gun? Well, I have no idea. Okay, I'm a little bit less. I'm still worried, obviously, but I'm
Yeah.
less worried about that person than a person that I'm like, do you want to kill yourself? Yes. How would you do it? I'd shoot myself in the head. Do you have access to a gun? Yeah, I have
And you've
one.
had these conversations with people before.
Tons of times.
So this is crazy, right? You don't want that person to harm themselves or
Yeah,
anybody else.
absolutely.
But you also have a client confidentiality agreement that you have to live and die by.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. So that's actually a thing that I talk about with clients before I even let them start telling me their story.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell them that everything they say is private and confidential, and I'm not allowed to share their information with anyone that they don't give me permission to, unless I'm afraid that they might harm themselves or someone else.
Okay.
And just because, so as I was saying, this can go either way, because like there's active suicidal ideation and there's passive suicidal ideation. Passive suicidal ideation is like, yeah, I do think about death, and yeah, I do wish I could die. Like, I'm not going to kill myself, but I wish if I got hit by a car when I left your office, I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah.
Or or like I wish I wouldn't wake up in the morning. Like that's passive suicidal ideation. Or like, oh, I just wish I could disappear, or I wish I could just disappear from Earth for 3 months and then come back. Like they just want a break from the emotional pain of life. But going back to like, let's say that it's active. Um, once I have a hunch that someone is suicidal, or maybe it's even confirmed that they are, at that point, like nothing else in my day matters.
Hmm.
I'm only attending to this. I will not let that person leave my sight until there's like a really good plan in place.
Hmm.
And that can look like multiple things. So sometimes it's a person that really does want to, and I'm able to say, like if they have a good support system, maybe their parents are in town, or they could be, um, or maybe they have like a best friend or a really good roommate. Dude, I'll have them call their friend or their roommate and come to my office and then join the meeting and have the client like explain things to the friend or the roommate or the family member, or with the client's permission I will um explain things, and then the that person will agree to stay with my client
Yeah.
like all night and all of the next day. So
Yeah.
another thing about suicide, which I'll mention, maybe we'll get back to, maybe not, but it's it's um it's more of a crisis moment thing.
Hmm.
Often, like there are definitely people that make a plan and then execute the plan, but it a lot of times it's like there's a crisis that lasts, I don't know the stats on this. Let's say there's a crisis that lasts 10 minutes or something, and they're sitting there. Like I've had clients have said I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my gun
Hmm.
for 10 minutes or for, a long time. Then eventually they're like, no, I don't want to do this. And they put it away and move on. If you can just be with them until the desire to die passes, then you just saved a life. So a lot of times we can make a good plan for somebody to have somebody who loves them or cares about them stay with them, and then I don't have to try to get them into the hospital, because
Yeah.
that's the other route. I've been with a client, and they were definitely suicidal, and they called their parents who lived 2 hours away, and we just hung out. I just hung out with the client for 2 hours while their parents hopped in the car and drove, like I'm sure you would,
Hmm.
if you got a call, one of your kids is in college or wherever, lives a couple hours away, and you get this call like, hey, your child's like has a plan for taking their life. Do you think you could come be here? Dude, you'd be in the car immediately. So, I've sat
Right.
there for a couple hours while we waited for a student's parents to get there.
Hmm.
Um, Now, if they don't have anyone and we can't come up with a good plan to keep that person safe, then I just get really honest with them. It's like, you recognize that you can't be by yourself right now. There isn't anybody that can come be with you. There are resources in the area that are designed exactly for this.
Yeah.
And in the hospital, and in each hospital in the area, there's resources there. So I've had a lot of clients taken to the hospital, and I'll
Yeah.
call the hospital ahead of time and say, hey, I'm so and so. I'm sending this client to you for this reason, and they say, okay, we'll be ready for them, and then they they do their assessment, and then they can put them in whichever level of care is the best. Like at the University of Iowa Hospital, there's a couple of different levels. So there's like straight up inpatient psych,
Yeah.
which is just like a locked unit. And then there's a crisis stabilization unit, which is like it's much more comfortable, so to speak. Usually if you go to like a psych unit, like you can't have your phone, you can't have your laptop, you can't have a bunch of those things. In the crisis stabilization unit at the hospital, you can have your phone. It's more chill. You can be like, there's like a kind of a commons area that you can hang out in, and there's counselors and there's psychiatrists and there's, group meetings and stuff. So there's different levels of care. So basically it's like this. It's like if you're my client and you're suicidal, and I don't think I think there's a good chance you're not going to make it through the night. I'll try to come up with a good plan for somebody in your support system to come be there. If
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work, then I'll see if you're willing to voluntarily go to the hospital. And if you're willing to voluntarily go, which actually surprisingly most people are, I explained to them like the crisis stabilization unit, and there's a few other resources in the area too that are similar to the crisis stabilization unit that a person could go, and there's beds there, and there's counselors and psychiatrists and stuff and group counseling. But if you're willing to go voluntarily, you can go and be in that kind of lower level. You could be there for a day or two or three,
Mm-hmm.
and just because like, yeah, you're totally right. Like, I shouldn't be alone.
Yeah.
Um, and so then I'll arrange for that, and often, the police or medics can take people. Like, I don't take people. I would if I absolutely had to. I would take somebody to the
Yeah.
ER. And I have gone with people to the ER multiple times. Or met them there. But usually, like, the police will transport them, and that's a really good service that the police do. Um, but if it's involuntary, so it's like, you tell me you're suicidal, we can't come up with a good plan for somebody in your support system to help you. You refuse to go to the hospital, then I'm like, all right, well, hate to do this, but like, I'm gonna push the issue here, and I'm gonna call the police, and they're gonna come take you to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then it can go basically one of two ways. One way is that you stick around and the police come and they talk to you and they take you one way or another
Mm-hmm.
to the hospital. The other way is that you take off. You're like, well, fine, fuck you then. I'm out of here. And you leave my
Yeah.
office. And I call the police and I say, hey, here's the situation. Here's the client. Here's what they're wearing. Here's what they look like. Here's the direction that they went. Here's where I think they're going. Go find them. And then
Yeah.
they usually do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they'll take them to the hospital. And I will say, like, this, just so you know, like, that's on the rarer side. That's pretty
Right.
rare for that to happen. In fact, like, I couldn't even tell you how many people I've sent to the hospital or convinced to go to the hospital. Of all of them, it's really been just a small handful that were involuntary,
Right.
that the police forced them to go. Because almost always the person's like, yeah, you're right. Like, by the end of a long conversation, they're like, yeah, you're right. I should do that. That'd be best
Yeah.
for me. And they'll go.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the harming yourself route, but I want to talk with recent, school shootings and this Charlie Kirk thing that has kind of popped up here. Um, like there are times where I find myself saying crazy shit, right? But that doesn't mean I'm going to follow through with that. Like, you hear people all the time say, I'd love to beat that guy's ass. Or maybe you have a thought in your mind.
Right.
I'd love to punch that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So how do you then, or let's say if I had a friend or a child or a colleague, or say, it's like, dude, I hate this guy so much. He's a piece of shit. I wouldn't mind if he was dead. That kind of verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then navigate what to take serious or how to take certain comments or things serious, or maybe even nonverbal triggers that would be like, dude, this guy is going to do something, right? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, for sure. So do you mean like as a counselor, or do you mean like just generally
I'll
speaking?
just say it. Like these school shooters or this guy who murdered Charlie Kirk, okay, or assassinated him. Someone had to see or know a little bit of something about what was going on before some of these people did
or like
that.
the guy that killed the insurance company CEO.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think people get deeper and deeper into their warped reality. I think it's like, so you're totally right. We all have those. I don't know if we all, but let's just say we all have those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that violent, but we all have thoughts of like doing something
Like,
violent
screw
or
that guy. I
repulsive.
hate him. I hate
Yeah,
him.
those are and those are called action urges, like a thing that you want to do, but then you don't do it because you're a well-adjusted human. I think people can get really focused on those thoughts, and I think they just spiral down and down, and to the point that it starts to become maybe an obsession, and it starts to become more of a possibility. And the more they allow themselves to entertain it, the more that it sounds like a good idea. The more they focus on their anger, the more they think of how good it would feel to do the thing. So, like, I don't know. I don't think they've caught the person that murdered Charlie Kirk, and so I don't know that we know why. Who knows why?
I think they actually have him in custody.
Okay,
as
fair.
of this morning.
But so I don't know why he did it. So we're just thinking, generally speaking, a person like that might have had this anger building for quite a while. And, maybe it's specifically about Charlie Kirk and maybe it's not. Like, maybe he does like specifically hate Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Maybe he's listened to a lot of his stuff and he just really fucking hates him. And so then he's like just been stewing on it, thinking about what he'd like to do, thinking about how he would do it. And then it's like, oh, Charlie's coming to this campus near me. Oh yeah, I could totally do this. And you start like fantasizing, and then you kind of lose touch with what grounded you to reality, and you get caught up in your own warped reality, and then you start making a plan.
Yeah.
And then you do it. So I think
crazy.
it's when somebody doesn't catch themselves on that slippery slope. You were like, what would people look for? Dude, largely I think people can tell when somebody's off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's really good for everybody to be connected, because when someone's not connected to other humans, then there isn't somebody to notice that they're off.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's pretty common for somebody to be like, yeah, they were struggling, or yeah, they hadn't been themselves for a while, or yeah, they were really upset about this or that. I think it's much more rare for it to feel like it comes out of the blue, because I think there are signs and warning signs. If you talked often about how angry you were about Democrats or Republicans or da da da, I'd be keeping more of an eye on you.
Yeah.
If you
hateful, violent speech.
Yeah.
Hate comments, speech, Facebook, social media posts, things like that.
Yeah, that's right. And the more aggressive, the worst. Like I know a lot of people who talk a lot on Facebook about whatever the thing is that they really dislike, but none of their words concern me. But then I've also seen other stuff where it's like, oh, geez, like that person's like taking it a little too far, or geez, that like what that person said just made me like a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm very comfortable with speech. I just mean uncomfortable in a like,
you took it to a next level.
Yeah,
thing.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, I think it's pretty often when somebody commits a crime like that they go back and look at their social media posts and they're like, oh yeah, like look at all of this. This isn't super surprising.
Right.
And so I think being connected to other humans is really, really important, because if you are connected, people can be like, dude, are you doing okay? Yeah. And if you're not connected, which is like if somebody withdraws, if there's somebody that you have talked to or were in good contact with, and then they withdraw, like that would be a good person to check on.
Yeah.
And that's not thinking that they're going to be a shooter or a mass shooter or anything like that. It's more like, oh, there's a chance that something's not okay with them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something like this where they're thinking about doing something really bad, or maybe they're really depressed on their own.
Yeah. That's interesting, because that disconnection from reality, or being able to satisfy urges, right? That goes even into other levels, just like, I don't know. And I don't want to say this is part of that or it's related to that at all, but urges like cheating on your wife, right? It's like there's an urge there somewhere, and you're choosing to fulfill that urge instead of the commitment that you've made to your wife, or, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how, like, where, or if there is even an overlap, because I don't want to compare adultery to murder. Right.
Right.
But, certain things, if like, I would be interested in finding more out about, what grounds people to, like, who they are, because even if you were surrounded by like-minded individuals, and even if some of the rhetoric that you guys were talking about was, dude, we're going to go, like, I'm going to I'm going to go to this meeting and I'm going to shoot this dude. And some people's like, yeah, whatever, and they thought it was a joke instead of it really being there. Or if someone in that group is also like, hey, listen, man, I know we disagree with this guy, but those types of comments or that type of action is not cool. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that what you're saying is probably pretty accurate, where there is nobody to hear his voice, and there is nobody that's really like, because that one school shooter, I think he even posted on social media, like, before he did it, that he was going to do it. Right. And so, I don't know. It blows my mind on, that there's people out there who are so, because I'm guessing they have to be scared, right? They're so scared. They're so lonely. They're so confused. Maybe they have extreme depression. And they feel like that is the correct answer, right? To fulfill that urge or to take their own life. And again, I can't relate to that. So how, like,
most people can't, obviously. Right.
No.
Yeah, but whatever the horrible act, I think you're getting to it really well, that whatever the horrible act is that the person committed is really indicative of how twisted their thoughts were that got them there. To think that was the thing that made sense to do. So, like, this guy that killed Charlie Kirk, his line of thinking, his logic took him to that. And it was obviously warped.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
And same with all the school shooters, and it's also, it's so tricky, because it's so important for humans to be kind to each other and for us to all take care of each other. And a lot of us are really not very nice to each other. Or there are aspects of life that are not fun and not pleasant. Like, thank goodness there was never a school shooting, around me when I was a kid, but holy shit, man, I saw some kids be ruthlessly tortured and bullied, and like every day, just coming to school and just hearing it all day, every day. And there were times I stood up for them and put a stop to that. And then there's also, like, you can't always be everywhere all the time. And to put a stop to it, like, dude, people can be fucking mean. People can be horrible. And I think it's way worse now, because now we have keyboard warriors. Dude, it used to be, Dan, that, and you know this well, that if you went to school and you got picked on there, or, like, everybody made fun of you, you weren't popular, whatever the reason was. Or let's say, like, something shitty or embarrassing happened, your boyfriend or girlfriend cheated on you, or, something happened in your friend group that ostracized you. Like, that's really shitty, right? It used to be that you got to leave school and go home, and home got to be your safe place. Like, at least once I get home, I don't have to deal with that shit anymore. Well, now they've got their bullies in their pocket, like they just get online and they're just they never get away from it.
Yeah. And I will admit this, when I was in, I can't remember. I think it was like middle school. I was a bully, dude. And I will admit that I was a bully. I was picking on people that I should have not picked on. I was ganging up on kids that did not deserve any of that. Okay. And I was doing it because I was insecure with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated my home life,
Mm-hmm.
part of my home life.
Yeah.
And this was, after my parents got divorced and
Yeah.
dealing with some other stuff, in the home and things like that. And I was a dick. I was a dick. And I
Yeah.
hated myself.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it was then I kind of, in a way, when I got into high school, I think I also understood that what I was doing to those people was not cool, man. Because I had my own insecurities. People could have made fun of me if they wanted to. I wasn't the best reader.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely not a good speller.
Mm-hmm.
And people, they kind of did, but they didn't, or whatever. And so I leaned into, I'm one of the cool kids in middle school at the expense of other people.
Oh yeah.
And it, to this
Absolutely.
day, I don't have very many regrets in my life, but I definitely regret doing what I did when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
It was not good, man.
Yeah.
It was
And,
not
and
good.
it's good that you matured out of that.
Yeah.
And actually you probably realize how common that is then. And that's
Yeah.
not like, being permissive of it. It's just being realistic, like how common that is for people to be mean to other people and to take their own insecurities out on other people. And then you combine that with just the natural human tendency and actually need to create in groups and out groups.
Mm-hmm.
So like everybody's insecure in junior high and high school. And so if you put a group of like homogeneous kids together, which means there's like almost everything's the same about them, they will find a way to divide themselves into groups.
Yeah.
And they will find a way. So it's like if I'm feeling a little bit insecure, or if I'm not sure where I stand in the social pecking order, or like I don't know how cool I am, or there's somebody cool that I want to like me, um, dude, I will find something to make fun of you about.
Right.
Because then you're the target, you're the out group, and that puts me in the in group. So
Yep.
I might be like, hey, nice blank gray shirt, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Love your blank shirt, dude.
Yeah.
Love all the blank shirts you wear to school. And you
Yeah.
might be like, like what?
Yeah.
But it literally doesn't matter. I would
Yeah.
pick anything. And then all it takes is like one other kid that's on the edge of insecurity of like, oh shit, here's my opportunity to not be the one getting picked on. And then
Yep.
other kids like, yeah, dude, fucking super cool gray shirt, Dan.
Yeah.
And now people are making fun of you for wearing a gray shirt when there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with the gray shirt, but those kids were feeling insecure, so they wanted to make sure that the gaze was not on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they put it on you for something.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
that hard. It's like, so then kids can get picked on for shit that's not even bad. It's just other kids were insecure.
Yeah, 100%. And, that's documented all over Netflix. My wife watched some documentary about like online bullying and things like that, and how real it is and how it changes people's lives, and how, it's like worst case scenario, other kids are telling a kid, oh, dude, you should do it. Yeah, you should kill yourself, and then it's just like, what is going on in this world?
Yeah.
Right? This world is in chaos. And I hate to say it, because there's benefits of social media and there's benefits of the internet, but I just feel as a society, and this is my own personal opinion, that life was maybe a little bit better in a different way when we didn't have access to the world at our hands at all times.
Right.
And the comparison that people compare what they see on the internet to their own lives, and how it takes away from others in their circle. It just, I don't know, man. It's just,
I totally agree.
It's a crazy world out there. And so I think this is a good place to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled it up. And that is, I believe it's called 988 Lifeline.
Yep, that's right.
Right?
Yep.
And so the 988 Lifeline is if you are in distress, you need emotional support, you feel like you're going to hurt yourself or somebody else, and you don't feel like you have anybody else to talk to, dial this number and someone should be there to help you.
Yep.
And I think we obviously don't want anybody to get to that point, But I think a lot of it has to do with if you feel you're sad in this world, we would rather have you in this world than have you not in this world at whatever the cost is. And so talk to somebody. If you're so down, find a mom, a dad, because in this world, and I will say this very boldly, that there is someone out there who loves you. Mm-hmm. There is someone out there who is willing to help you through your problems. And so don't be afraid. There is light at the end of the tunnel. If you feel like you're in a tunnel and you're in darkness, there is a light. You just got to find it. And
absolutely, man.
And there's someone out there that will help you find it. So, anything else before we shut her down, Kyle?
No, great topic. I'm really glad that you identified that for us to talk about today. And obviously there's so much more to be said. Yep. We're not going to cover everything comprehensively in an hour or a little more. So, I really appreciate you. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you download the Man Therapy podcast. Give us a 5-star review. That will help us get indexed. And the more that we get indexed, the more this podcast gets exposed on those platforms and the more people will listen to us. So that's the goal, is to kind of bring attention to men's health, men's mental health, all of that stuff. And then just have I feel like the next conversation that we have to have, because this one was kind of had a very serious tone to it. We got to get silly on the next one.
Okay.
So,
I'll get silly with you.
Yeah. And so, all right. I'm looking forward to our next chat, Kyle.
Thanks, bud.